War. War never changes.
You some kind of war junkie?
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to the War 102 podcast, where we explore the doctrine, theory, philosophy, and history of warfare. I'm your guide, Paul Darling, and I want to share what I learned in nearly 30 years in uniform. So let's get to learning about the most influential activity in human history, war. Welcome to episode 108, Praying Mantis. Operation Praying Mantis, conducted on April 18th, 1988, is one of the most significant naval engagements at post-World War II. It represented the United States Navy's largest surface action since World War II and marked the first time since that global conflict in which American warships sank an enemy surface combatant. Although the operation bore a single code name, it actually was a whole bunch of different phases with different surface action groups, air support, and then sequential responses to Iranian countermeasures. These phases targeted Iranian oil platforms used for military surveillance and command functions, or so we say, as well as Iranian naval vessels that attempted to engage American forces. But to understand the full scope of these actions, you got to understand the broader context of the ongoing Iran-Iraq war and the so-called tanker war that was going on in the Persian Gulf. The Iran-Iraq war began in September 1980, which we talked about, when Iraq invaded Iran, and that sparked the 8-year conflict that claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. By the mid-1980s, the war had expanded into the Persian Gulf, where both nations attacked commercial shipping in an effort to cripple the other's oil exports. This phase, known as the tanker war, threatened the flow of oil from the region, which supplied a significant portion of the world's energy needs. Neutral merchant vessels, including those from Kuwait and other Gulf states, became frequent targets of Iranian speedboat attacks, missile strikes, and naval mining operations. In response, the United States launched Operation Earnest Will in 1987. Now, stop me if you've heard this before, but under this protective umbrella, the U.S. Navy reflagged Kuwaiti tankers as American vessels and provided escort protection through the hazardous waters of the Gulf and specifically in the Straits of Hormuz. American warships patrolled the region to deter Iranian aggression and safeguard international shipping lanes. The protective mission quickly escalated into direct confrontations. Iranian forces, and particularly elements of the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard Corps, operating small, fast attack craft known as bog hammers, which is the name of the brand, harassed tankers and laid mines in shipping channels. These mines were often sophisticated contact or influence types, designed to damage or sink vessels with no warning. U.S. intelligence linked many of those attacks to Iranian oil platforms in the Gulf, which served dual purposes: extracting natural gas and oil, while also functioning as forward observation posts equipped with radars and communication gear to coordinate strikes against shipping. One notable early retaliatory action set the stage for later events. On October 16, 1987, an Iranian Silkworm missile struck the reflagged Kuwaiti tanker motor vessel Sea Isle City while it waited to load cargo off Kuwait. The missile, launched from Iranian territory on the Al-Fa Peninsula, severely damaged the vessel, blinded its American captain, and injured 18 crew members. In direct response, U.S. forces executed Operation Nimble Archer. Always love that name. On October 19, 1987, 4 American destroyers shelled 2 Iranian oil platforms in the Rashadat field, which had been damaged earlier by Iraqi attacks but repurposed by Iran for military coordination. Special forces boarded one platform, recovered documents, and planted explosives. Cover from cruisers and carrier-based fighters ensured no interference. The platforms were destroyed without American casualties, demonstrating U.S. willingness to strike Iranian assets in proportion to provocations while avoiding broader escalation. But despite Nimble Archer, Iranian mining and harassment continued. The decisive trigger for the larger operation came on April 14, 1988. The guided missile frigate USS Samuel B. Roberts, part of the Earnest Will escort force, was transiting international waters in the central Persian Gulf when it struck an Iranian mine. The explosion ripped a massive hole in the hull, broke the ship's keel, and nearly sank the vessel. 10 sailors suffered injuries, and 4 of them serious burns, yet the crew's exceptional damage control kept the ship afloat. Divers later recovered additional mines in the area. Serial numbers on these devices matched those seized months earlier aboard an Iranian mine-laying barge captured by U.S. forces. This forensic evidence left no doubt about Iranian responsibility. President Ronald Reagan authorized a measured but firm retaliatory strike. Planning moved swiftly. U.S. commanders assembled 3 surface action groups, or SAGs, drawn from ships already in the Gulf or nearby. The operation received the codename Praying Mantis, evoking the insect's precise, lethal strike. Or that's what they say. Objectives remain limited. Destroy 2 Iranian oil platforms used for surveillance and military command, neutralize any Iranian naval response, and avoid attacking Iranian mainland territory or escalating into full-scale war. Carrier air support would come from the USS Enterprise, positioned outside the Gulf with Carrier Air Wing 11 embarked. The plan emphasized proportionality, de-escalation if Iran withdrew, and protection of U.S. forces. Now, maybe it's just me, but Reagan's reputation as this badass gunslinger really kind of takes a hit when you start actually looking at what we did during the 80s. At dawn on April 18, 1988, the various operations of Praying Mantis commenced simultaneously. SAG Bravo, commanded by the officer leading Destroyer Squadron 9 and consisting of the destroyers Merrill and Lind McCormick, plus the amphibious transport dock USS Trenton, with an embarked Marine Air Ground Task Force, or MAGTAF, targeted the Sassan oil platform. The steel lattice structure, located in Iranian waters, housed guns, radars, and communication equipment supporting Revolutionary Guard operations. At 8 a.m., Merrill broadcast a warning for all personnel to evacuate. After a 20-minute grace period, the SAG opened fire when the platform's occupants responded with twin-barreled 23mm Zu-23 anti-aircraft guns, what we used to call the Zeus. American 5-inch guns and smaller weapons suppressed the Iranian fire. Yeah, I bet they did. AH-1T Sea Cobra attack helicopters from the Marine contingent then raked the platform with rockets and gunfire to eliminate remaining resistance. A brief ceasefire allowed a tugboat to clear the area, after which the SAG resumed shelling until the platform's guns finally fell silent. Marines fast roped onto the burning structure from helicopters, secured the site, recovered 1 wounded Iranian survivor for medical evacuation to Bahrain, collected small arms and intelligence materials, and planted demolition charges. The explosives detonated right afterwards, collapsing large sections of the platform. SAG Bravo then received orders to proceed towards a third platform, Rakash, but the attack was canceled midway to prevent unnecessary escalation once Iranian resistance appeared to wane. Meanwhile, SAG Charlie, comprising the guided missile cruiser USS Wainwright, the frigates Simpson and Bagley, and a SEAL platoon, struck the Siri oil platform. Naval gunfire heavily damaged the facility before the SEALs could even launch their assault. The platform's military functions were neutralized without the need for boarding. Post-operation assessments confirmed both Sassan and Siri were rendered inoperable as surveillance and command posts. SAG Delta, built around the guided missile frigate USS Jack Williams, destroyer O'Brien, and the guided missile destroyer Strauss, operated in a more fluid role. Its primary mission involved hunting for Iranian warships that might attempt to interfere. As events unfolded, this group became central to the naval engagements that followed. Iranian forces did not remain passive. Shortly after the platform attacks began, 6 Boghammer speedboats raced from their bases towards merchant shipping in the area. These fast, heavily armed craft, each carrying machine guns, rocket launchers, and sometimes even anti-ship missiles, targeted the U.S.-flagged supply ship Willie Tide, the Panamanian-flagged oil rig support vessel, and the British tanker York Marine near the Mubarak offshore oil field. The speedboats inflicted minor damage through gunfire and rockets. U.S. A-6E intruder aircraft from Enterprise's VA-95 squadron, already airborne on surface combat air patrol, responded quickly. Directed by a U.S. frigate, the intruders dropped Rockeye cluster bombs on the formation. 1 Boghammer sank immediately, and the others scattered, fleeing towards Abu Musa Island with damage. This air intervention prevented further harm to neutral shipping and demonstrated the integrated power of naval aviation. The most intense surface actions occurred when Iranian warships sortied to challenge the American groups. The Kaman-class fast attack craft Joshan, a missile boat armed with Harpoon anti-ship missiles, approached SAG Charlie. After radio warnings went unheeded, Joshan fired a harpoon at Wainwright. The American cruiser deployed chaff decoys, causing the incoming missile to miss. In reply, Simpson launched 4 standard surface-to-air missiles in surface mode, while Wainwright fired 1 more. All 5 struck Joshan's superstructure, crippling the vessel. Bagley then fired a harpoon that missed. As the SAG closed range, gunfire from the American ships finally sank the burning Joshan. This exchange marked the first time in history that opposing surface ships traded anti-ship missiles in combat. Farther south, the Iranian frigate Shahand departed Bandar Abbas and steamed northward to engage. 2 more A-6E intruders spotted the ship and came under missile fire. The intruders retaliated with 2 Harpoon missiles and 4 laser-guided Skipper bombs. Joseph Strauss added a harpoon of its own. Multiple hits ignited fires that reached Shahan's munitions magazines, triggering secondary explosions, and the frigate sank within hours, becoming the largest warship destroyed by U.S. forces since World War II. A second Iranian frigate, Sabalan also sorted from its berth. It fired a single surface-to-air missile at approaching A6Es. One intruder responded by dropping a 500-pound Mark 82 directly down the ship's stack. The blast crippled Sabalan's engineering spaces, leaving the frigate burning and partially submerged by the stern. Iranian tugs later towed the vessel to port. The American aircrew exercised restraint and did not press further attacks, adhering to the rules of engagement that emphasized de-escalation once the threat was neutralized. Iranian air forces also attempted intervention. Two F-4 Phantom fighters approached Sag Bravo but broke off when the destroyer, McCormick, locked fire control radar on them. Another pair of F-4s orbited about 30 miles from Sag Charlie. Wainwright fired two extended-range Standard missiles. One detonated near an F-4, apparently damaging its wing and fuselage. The damaged aircraft managed an emergency landing at Bandar Abbas. Iranian land-based forces launched several Silkworm missiles towards Sag Delta in the Strait of Hormuz and toward the frigate USS Gary farther north. All missed due to evasive maneuvers, electronic countermeasures, aka ECM, and, so they claim, defensive gunfire from Gary's 76mm gun. U.S. officials later confirmed the attacks but emphasized that no American ships suffered damage. As evening approached, the operation wound down. One Sea Cobra helicopter from the Marine contingent crashed 15 miles southwest of Abu Musa after dark, killing two Marine aviators. Investigation later revealed no battle damage. The cause appeared mechanical or related to low-level flight in contested airspace. This was the only U.S. fatalities directly tied to the day's combat. Iranian losses total about 56. Two oil platforms lay in ruins, one fast attack craft and one frigate rested on the Gulf floor. Another frigate was severely damaged and several speedboats sunk or disabled. Two Iranian fighter aircraft suffered damage. U.S. forces suffered no ship losses and only the two Marine pilots killed in the helicopter crash. Civilian shipping in the area experienced limited additional damage from the initial speedboat attacks, but no tankers were lost. The various phases of Operation Praying Mantis achieved the objectives within the single day. Strategically, the strike sent a message to Iran, already strained by the prolonged war with Iraq and facing economic isolation. They could no longer afford to challenge U.S. naval power in the Gulf, and within weeks, Iranian leaders signaled willingness to accept a ceasefire. On July 18, 1988, Iran agreed to United Nations Resolution 598, ending the 8-year Iran-Iraq War. The International Court of Justice later examined both Nimble Archer and Praying Mantis in a 2003 ruling stemming from Iran's lawsuit. The court determined that the attacks could not be justified under self-defense provisions of international law as necessary to protect essential U.S. security interests, though it rejected Iran's broader claims for reparations under the 1955 Treaty of Amity. So, what are we to learn from Praying Mantis? Well, one of the biggest things that I learned when doing the research for this is how half-assed we were. We should have monkey stomped those guys. Already the International Court of Justice ruled that we were unjustified in what we did. Not that it made any difference. I think in hindsight, and I think we're paying some bitter fruit for that right now, Iran doesn't take American resolve seriously. And again, Reagan had the reputation of this gunslinging American cowboy out to reclaim our place in the world. But frankly, if you look at Beirut, and you certainly look at Nimble Archer, you look at Praying Mantis, everything was restrained, subdued. Don't make anyone too angry. As if a country that chants death to America could be any more angry at us. And I think this restraint exhibited by Reagan has entered into the Iranian psyche as Americans don't go all the way. And Trump seems to be a different creature. Now, I think the big difference between now and then is that our Navy is simply not capable of conducting massive escort operations through contested space. We don't have minesweeping capabilities anymore. We don't have frigates anymore. We don't have nearly the number of destroyers and cruisers. We have lots of aircraft, but none of them optimized for this kind of long endurance escort type operations. The Navy isn't what it was, and arguably neither is the Iranian Navy, especially after we sank it. But the fact that in the absence of an ongoing war like the Iran-Iraq war, we aren't able to force the Straits of Hormuz is kind of an indictment of where our Navy is. We have a new naval secretary. Now the SecNav is hung. And I'm curious what he is going to do to fix this situation. I don't believe that the U.S. Navy should be in a position where it cannot force a strait against a naval power like Iran, the way Iran is now. So anyways, that's a little bit of history. I think that's why Iran is willing to
point that finger right in our chest and poke us around, even though they're the little kid. It's like little brother bullying. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I don't think they've really internalized that Trump is a different person than Reagan. I think they equate the two as outsiders, older men, got that cowboy reputation. But we will see. I just hope we have the Navy capable to exercise what our commander-in-chief and what our nation's policy and strategies are. So that's all I got. Talk to you later.
Thanks for listening today. If you want to help the show, please share today's episode on any social media sites you can. Check out the War 102 Buzzsprout website for more information and to send me a message. And, of course, my thanks to the subscribers who help keep the show going. Hope you all join me next week. See you soon.